Hi, this video is gonna be a general, well, overview and some updates on my channel. And anyways, I'll just start off with this part. I've updated a lot in this section. I've moved things over here. I have this thing over here. No one really asks me what they don't understand or anything, so I'm not sure what I should do, but keep this in mind for now. And let me show you some other sections that I've updated. And okay, so this part, this dashed line is different from this one and different from this one because it's purposeful. Okay, it's this is magnetic vectors, and this is the etheric circular field, basically. And the smaller dashed lines are the dielectric, but kind of, but not really. It's kind of included in this section where psi as dielectric permittivity, I guess, and phi as magnetic permeability, and Q is electric, the quantification of electrification between the psi and phi as electromagnetic induction. So that's the big deal of this about. And I'm just moving this around. I added this part. I should say that this part, it might be confusing, but it's meant to be read like this. So clockwise discharge, so discharge, so this part is like this, and so divergent discharge, so this reflects here. So what's over here is clockwise, but what's over here is counterclockwise discharge. And what this is divergent discharge, it's centrifugal discharge in this side, which if you could wrap your mind around that, you're pretty smarter than the average person. Anyways, so clockwise convergence, and this is counterclockwise centripetal convergence. So this is connected, so centripetal convergence in this axis or z-axis, right? And this is the golden well, is it the golden rectangle? I keep forgetting, but yeah, 1 to 5, yeah, this is a golden rectangle, which I just called a coherent geometric phi magnet, which if you're wondering why I called it that, that's the reason. So this is 108 over here, this is 144 over here, and 144 over here, which this is the init angle version of the 137.5 angle, or the angular phi angle. So it's a close version of it. So this graph here, the transverse electromagnetic and longitudinal magnetodielectric, so the z-axis is going this way as the psi, which represented with this, and the Q is this part, which is this part, this line, and the phi is represented with the longer dashed line, which is represented with this. And if that was confusing, well, it's because okay, so the Q part is actually this. It's the dotted line part, which I have as this part as the outer shell, or electromagnetic shell, but I don't really believe in objectifying a sphere as a 0-point field quantity, because it's more like a continuous field expression between these intersections, the psi and phi. So it's not just limited to one specific electrical shell area or surface area. So I am not really a component of electron theory. Okay, so anyways, I've updated this part to convey these angles a little more, and it's really complicated and not that complicated at the same time, but maybe you'll get it by looking at it, but maybe you won't, and it's fine if you don't get it, because this is more of an exercise for myself to what I'm trying to understand for myself, and it's not necessarily the way to understand it, and it's my own system in the sense that it goes against some other paradigms of pre-existing systems by other people, but at the same time it's a more simplified version, because instead of being like overly nuanced to the point of being seemingly arbitrary and not just like overly compounded upon itself, but like a abstracted mirage of sorts of a conceptual abstraction trap, or that's how I would phrase it. Like I try to avoid those, because there's lots of those in the later Neoplatonic systems that try to place the demiurge on specific tiers of nuanced existence of the hierarchy, which is a whole topic in itself that is a downfall of later Neoplatonism in the issue of trying to make up or deduce a system of the Chaldean oracles and Plato, and where the demiurge could be placed and its implications, which in the short term I generally agree with the Platonian system to be the most simplified version, because if you focus too much on the placing of the demiurge, it becomes a meaningless endeavor, the more specific you try to convey it, the less you actually understand what the point of it to begin with. Which, that's a huge point that many people forget about in academia. And some people in academia actually noticed this and made an article on why, like, the actual problem that the academics have in trying to exegete all these various Neoplatonists. And the conclusion is that basically we have no idea what the source text of the Chaldean oracles or the Orphic system would actually place the demiurge, which means that, most of it is pretty much being pulled out their asses this whole time. Which means that some parts of the theodicies and all that is a waste of time, and it's not the reason why we should even focus on such meaningless tasks and focus more on trying to reduce conceptual abstractions and understand the ontological hierarchy, less in terms of conceptual nuances and more in a more unified Plotinian system, which is also, in a sense, not nuanced enough, but at the same time it can be just treated as as good enough, in a sense that there's just not gonna be enough words to convey something that could be actually objectively knowable in an objectively abstracted sense through language, which cannot be done. Which is the point of what I'm saying here, is that sometimes we just cannot put things in words, in things of meaningless nuances of differences, and we should focus on more general basics, and from there be not try to go back to descend into expressions of nuances and remain in what we can know for sure as to what is more simplex, as in logically, hyperlogically self-similar, to itself. Anyways, this part is new. I have the dodecahedron in here, and there's also the unfolded 5 pyramid. So this is a square here. There's with the same square side, but the distance of this, you get the 5 pyramid, the 5 square pyramids. One of the 5 square pyramids triangular side, so one of these here, another's here, another's here, and another's here. And these arrows, you can't really make a notice of it, but there's an arrow going like that. So these arrows are going outwards, as meant the magnetic force going this way, and the dielectric is going inwards like this. So you gotta keep in mind what I have said before on these symbols, the how do you say it, line style differences, which corresponds to a certain field modality and its expression as vectors and such. And it's self-explanatory, I suppose, but the spindle torus, people don't really get it. It's this geometry over here. And why do I have things like this in this circle here is because it has the inverse hyperboloidal geometry to the magnetic ring and spindle torize. So for this, the inverse of the spindle torus is the hyperboloid. Oh, did I make an error? I don't remember if this should have been the same as this. Let me just fix that right now. Okay, let's just pretend I didn't do that right now. And ignore that in my most recently published PDF of the updated version of this thing. And okay, so people didn't quite get this part, which no one really even asked any questions on, but so unison is over here, point, and the octave is line, which is also this. So 1 to 5 to the power of 3, and this is the 5th, and this is the 4th, and this is the tone. So in other words, monad, mind, magnitude, matter, and man. But it's not quite magnitude and matter, but it's close enough. Basically, it's the fivefold system of the Pythagorean. And this angle over here, 38.172, is correlated to the angle of 1 over the square root of phi. And explaining that is another thing altogether, but I actually did it in another video. But anyways, this is how I interpreted Ken Wheeler's one of many graphs, but he never actually outright explained what it is. And it may not ever be explained, who knows. But actually I have it, my guess over here, explained, but it might not be actually what Ken Wheeler was thinking. But anyways, okay, so this is the Pythagorean versus the Thalian divided line section interpretation, and why I think the Pythagorean one is superior to the Thalian version is mostly because geometrically, like this is 5, 1, 1, 1 over 5, 1 over 5, 1 over 5 over 5, 1 over 5 over 5, and 1 over 5 over 5 over 5. which also by area, like if this is whole thing is 5, then this is 1, and this is 1/5. So it goes on and breaks down it like that. Okay, so you cannot quite have the same system that's going on with the Thalian triangles, but there is nevertheless unity between those two systems that makes both of them technically valid in the divided line section, but only if they use the golden mean, which is what unifies these two as one, which is a point that many don't quite get as to why the golden mean is conveyed through this matter. And so if there were to be an even more simplified version of the Pythagorean hierarchy, it will be conveyed like this. So the nous, the psychotopantos, and reality, and these are the nuance systems between, and it's a 5-fold system, but actually could be 7-fold, but getting to that is another thing. And this thing here, I'm not even gonna explain it, it's just that good. And so is this. I'm not gonna explain this. It's mostly self-explanatory, so I'm just gonna move on, alright? And even though I labeled this as a, come on computer, as a square root 1, square root 2, square root 3 torus, I don't know how to really elaborate more on this, but by this I meant the ellipsoidal torus. So maybe I should have extended that part. Ellipsoidal horned torus, which is what the horned torus is. It's like a horn like this, 2 horns coming together out null point. So yeah, nobody quite really gets that this is the maximal angular limit from the center that could fit a circle, and that is an ellipsoidal horn torus, which doesn't cross over the boundary of the diameter circle within the ellipsoidal horn torus. So if it's a little more wider than this, the ellipsoidal part, it will not fit the circle. It will be touching or going through the sphere or circle. Imagine this is 3-dimensional. Okay, so in a sense, this is more closer to the circle than the 108th angular Ennead phi based ellipsoidal horn torus, which I didn't draw that out, but this is the maximum angle from the center, this or this, that could be done. I don't know how to convey in a better sense, but I hope that made a little more sense than before. Come on, computer. Okay. So this part might have been confusing to some. So it's a externalized Archimedean spiral. This is a deliberate misspelling to convey the phi incommensurate emanation paradigm from phi going through all the way to phi to the power of negative infinity. In total is 3.1446 blah blah blah, or 4 over the square root of phi. So it is externalized, so it's outside of the circle. So it like goes from this corner to this corner, from this corner to this corner, 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 this corner, and it goes all the way up. And infinitum, never to be completed objectively, but it is completed technically at a phi to the power of infinite diameter sphere, which is the phenomenal world, which is why you externalize expression, projection of the one outside of itself is totality. It is infinite, and at the same time it cannot be finally described effectively to be shown in this graph, which is why this gray line over here that is representative of the angular phi to the power of negative infinity, meaning at phi to the power of infinity diameter sphere, which is what the one outside the one means to be infinite and totality, yet it's outside of itself. But what is inside of itself has no other than itself, which is what the 1 over 0 means, or the 0 part is shunyata, or void of soul or true self. So that which has no other than itself is itself. That is what I mean by hand over aporetos, which is the 1 over ineffable. It's not quite nothingness per se, but it is the ground of which everything stands upon, which is nothing. Therefore, it is itself everything, yet not being everything, and prior to everything. Which again leads me back here. Come on, move. Okay, and let's just go through this. So Zoe, apophasis, as idols, unity over on, over idolon, or the projected image of the image, or the form. My bad. Which this I set it up as the suke or psyche. Which leads to anamnesis, epistles over nous unity, which is the true self aristos being, as nous unity, as phi to the power of negative, phi to the power of 2, as the nous and unity, or one unity, and which this expresses out as epistrophe, which this part is seen in here, so this part seen in here, and it goes on and on and on, and it returns back to life by positive, or expressed the meaning of life, so to speak, from the negation of understanding what life actually is. So that's what I meant by this. It doesn't mean that it's a perpetual becoming of such, which, I'm not a perpetualist in a sense, although things will be perpetuated. It doesn't mean that people cannot escape that perpetuation through wisdom, and that's what I try to convey here. And I have ananke as mone prohodos over epistrophe as 101 in another sense, but it's also the expression of negative infinity and positive infinity. So it's not quite zero in and of itself, and it's not quite infinite in and of itself. And so I made a distinction between ananken and aporetos because ananke is below hen, and aporetos is the ground of which hen exists. So gnosis is theoria over ananke in a sense, and explaining that is another endeavor in itself. And before I get to that, like this part analysis, it's like that it applies to the system below and above it. So epistrophe relates to this, and this gnosis relates to this, and this theoria relates to this, and this and relates to this, and this, and zoe cataphasis only relates to this part, barring the hen part, which this is connected to this, as this is relates to this, and so on and so forth. And why do I have a recursive thing over here is because when speaking of the apparatus, it doesn't in itself exist without a hen, or the absolute. So without the absolute, there's no understanding thereof, no ground for apparatus to even have meaning, which is the point beyond this. Or the point behind this expression that I'm trying to convey through here. So the one R in the Damascus in Damascus' system, the one R is in a sense one, therefore totality, and the R one is totality, therefore one. So this is a therefore operator, and it corresponds to the R1 corresponds to the Proclean Prohodos, and the one R relates to the Proclean Mone. And however, I had move the Proclean theurgy as beyond the one, beyond epistrophe, but the Proclean epistrophe is as conveyed here as pedos over apeiron or gnosis over agnosis. And you could kind of generally see that I'm going to try to visually convey here. But this part of this triangle over here is not the same as this triangle over here. For this is 5 to the power 3, and this is 5. This is just regular 5. But it is meant to be separated by so 5 times 5 to the power 2 equals 5 to the power 3. So these two are apart from each other by 2 powers in a sense. And this line over here, the unmanifest psyche, corresponds to this line over here, which is also 1 as the unity part of the nous unity, and it also corresponds to the 1 unity over here of the second hypostasis. But at the same time, this line over here is not just 1, it's also nous over here, which nous unity, I had nous unity as unity over psyche, as psyche is itself over what is equal. So there's no this without this. And let me go back to the other diagram to get to the point of why I have it laid out like this, is especially the center part, the psyche, intellect, and ether thing. If I could move it, okay. Hold on. Come on, move. Okay, so I have the psyche over here, nous over here, and ether. And Ken Reader had his system to have psyche in the center, and nous over here, and the 1 over here, and higher or lesser, so greater, equal, unity, lesser. But I had moved psyche in terms of dividing the circle over here, so I had a psyche zoe over here, or phanes, you could call this phanes as well. So I did this because I wanted to change the notion of like the annoying intelligible intellective and intelligible intellective things. I wanted to like place 3 triangles in one circular outer peripheral system, and have 1 triangle, inner triangle, inside the noetic part, even though technically everything outside of lesser is noetic, or intellective at least. The reason why is, like, I think the Platonic system, the hypostasis is conveyed over here in this part, at least the appointed parts, so hen, nous, and psyche. So the intellect and soul is conveyed here, and as and what is between all this is the ether. But at the same time, it is not completely the one, because the one gives forth ether, or expresses itself as that which is equal to greater and unity lesser, or the what is in between, so to speak, between those things. So this life over here is not quite the same as the Proclean system, because it's also a part of the lesser triangle, although there's no well, it is Aristos, the what's between life and matter is Aristos, but it is Aristos is also in between psyche and hyle, and what's in between those two is mimesis of the unity into a phenomenal reality. So this unity, although it's a one outside the one, and it is not quite the one in and of itself, which is in this part of the sphere or the circle. Well, you could think about it as a sphere. So you gotta rotate this in the XY plane and imagine this is a Z-axis if you're gonna do it as a sphere. But if you were to do that, that would mean one rotation will be done as a one cut, therefore making this one also a one, which would throw off this diagram a bit. But so this is more of a circular representation rather than a spherical one. And anyways, this numerical system, what does it mean? Well, imagine start from 0, or start from 0, 1 and 1, and from this 1, from here you rotate this over here, this axis, or move this over here, which has nous, right? And then you fold this over this line and you have hyle, and you fold hyle over eidolon as mimesis, which is why I have it like 3, 4, 5, because, and I have this as this line pattern for a reason, as the psyche, but it's not quite the psyche, but rather that which is in unity with the lesser, as the grasping of psyche towards life. Through the projection of the idols using the ether. Anyways, if you don't quite get it clicked into your mind, well, it's okay. I could simplify it a bit further than this, but in a different sense, I kind of diverge away from some traditions in formulating it like this, and I don't care. And I just don't care. And this angle over here is the angle of 1, which is the same as this angle, and this angle is actually phi, and it's the same as here. This line and this line is an angle of phi, as this is the angular phi, this is angular phi, so too is this and this. So 1 and phi is already held between the unborn. This is the unborn right here. That is neither in the phenomenal or the nominal, but it's in the in between area, so to speak, but it's neither in between how do you say, it's not quite up or down in a hierarchical sense. Sorry, I was drinking coffee, and I have 1, 1, 2, 3 flipped over using this 4, and what's in between this is the eidolon, which makes a 5, and then it's flipped over here in this axis as 6, and what's in between 5 and 6 is 7 as the ether, and then I make the what's in between these two 5s, so this first and this second, and then finally hen as over here, which is over 0, as 10, which is the one that returns back to itself, which is the purpose behind emanationism, which is the reversion or the return of the one to the one, to the point of it being having no other than self as its own foundation. Okay, if you don't get that, well, you're stupid. That's what I'm gonna say. That's you're just stupid. If you don't get it, well, take your time and read the Periphasion and the Enneads, Porphyry's launching points, and Porphyry's letter to Marcella, and also Sri Sankaracharya, the Upanishads, Ken Wilber's various books. He has lots of books, by the way, that he's published freely. I could link them to you if you want, but anyways, what's the point of this is that the Plotinian system is not ex nihilo as the Thomist system is, as the materialist system is, of creation ex nihilo, of the Big Bang without any reason, but the creationist reason is itself still ultimately using ex nihilo. And what is nihilo? Ex nihilo fits. Did I say right? Ex nihilo and ex nihilo fits. It's nothing comes from nothing, as meant there cannot be nothing in and of itself to make something. So there is no such thing as a Plotinian zero, as Eric Steinhardt or whatever suggests, as some polluted Heideggerian misinterpretation of Plotinian metaphysics. So I am against him and against lots of other people too. And I might get into details about as to why I think that way and such, but I am basically going to step away from physics based stuff for now, because as you could clearly tell, I don't quite get what's going on with the electrical field theory stuff. I haven't made any new videos on it because due to the lack of materials that I have in making certain coils, and you think that it's cheap and all, but it's more like I have to start from scratch, and it's gonna take a long time before I get to any place to it. So I'm not gonna really focus too much on that anymore, and focus more on metaphysical stuff and simplifying all these diagrams into a more simpler system, and focus more on writing rather than diagramming. Although this is, in a sense, my own dialectic representation, just without using much words. So I hope you found this interesting, and I am going to eventually move to a different platform. I'm not quite sure which one yet for now, but in that platform I'm going to not upload much of the videos that I have uploaded, since I don't think I want people to know too much about my life, and I might later on delete my old videos that might get into too much information on my life. So that's my channel update slash apparatus theoria apophasis updates, and yeah, I'll have the updated link to this in the description below. And again, if you have any questions, you could contact me to my Proton mail and the comments below, but I will not be inclined to comment on everything that's been. I'm not gonna bother debating people that doesn't deserve my time, basically. So yeah, see you later. Oh, but before I get to that, I haven't quite showed you what this part is. Did I? Oh, come on. Come on, computer. Okay, so why do I have fractions in the inside of these circles is because, okay, the top part is just a numerical lambda, and the bottom part is the astrological, or I should say astronomical, because the Pythagoreans were more so rather than astrologers. Okay, even though the stars above represents the gods, it's not literally the gods. So, and the point of it is to understand to the gods as meant to become one. Alright, so I am not a hard pagan, okay, in a sense, because it kind of de-emphasizes devotionalism as the path to unity with the one, or the absolute, or the monad, right? Which is why I have this section here. So 2 corresponds to the bottom part of this first circle. Okay. So 9 here corresponds to the 3 Saturn and Jupiter great conjunctions in 60 years. The 10 here is a tetractys is over here. So don't get that confused with this, okay? Because this 9 relates to this 9 over here. Anyways, that's, you could kind of understand the rest for yourself if you just stared at it and also looked up more information with these key phrases here. I mean, key terms. Just look it up for yourself, and you might get it on. And I think that's it. Excuse me. And yeah, thank you for watching.